So, do you think any country has ever had a complete capitalistic society
Neoliberalism?
without government interference and crony capitalism and this whole?
Well, unfortunately, I think crony capitalism is actually more of a result of unregulated capitalism than regulated capitalism. Sure, there is a sort of devil handshake deal with the government that helps crony capitalism, but I actually think that during the time you've heard of J.P. Morgan, of course, right? And the captains of industry, or the robber barons, as they're called by the people who don't like them. That time was pretty close to as unregulated as possible capitalism. And what developed? Monopolies. JP Morgan, he bought the train, he bought all the train like companies, and if he couldn't, he gave them good deals, and he made it difficult for his competitors and other oil industries to do it. And the steel industry got really good, and working conditions were terrible at that time. And it was thanks to riots and protests and the New Deal that really put an end to that finally. Which is a leftist thing. I forget his name, but the president, FDR, I believe, I'm not sure, but the guy who did the New Deal, he basically this was also about the time that World War I and II were starting, so communism was on the rise, and the Cold War hadn't happened yet. So people didn't have a bad taste in their mouth when they hear the word communism. So there were a lot of workers' riots and things that were happening that time, and people were going to the president like, "Oh my God, they're gonna have almost a revolution on our hands. We need to do something." And FDR was like, "Okay, guys." He went to the companies and he was like, "Look, let's establish this thing called Social Security so that people can retire." That's how Social Security started. He said, "I need to tax you guys a bunch," and they were taxed very highly back then, and they agreed to it. In order to pay for social services, put people, improve these conditions, establish the 8-hour workday. Before that, it was kind of just however long they could get you to work. The 8-hour workday, overtime was established at that point. And these are all leftist ideas. And as well as paid vacations, maternity leave, and like I said, Social Security, and unemployment benefits. These were all basically came out of about the New Deal time. And that's basically what saved capitalism. They were essentially about to overthrow capitalism at that point, but they basically turned it into social democracy, or at least they socialized it more than it was. And they also established a lot of workplace safety things like OSHA and stuff like that, so that violations, people would be more incentivized to do it to keep their workers safe. Because under unregulated capitalism, if you just look at the Industrial Revolution, it was terrible. We had child labor, and people were dying all the time, and also no education. You put the child in work. They didn't go to school. The school came later. Unfortunately, the school was a good idea. Public school was a great idea, but it was actually to make better skilled laborers. But and of course, that's why I would push for more education. So it was social democracy kind of that saved unregulated capitalism in those times.
Yeah,
I hope that answers the question.
I'm not sure. Because I need to read more, honestly, of some of these
you
people.
Should.
But
reading is important.
Yeah, I know. I read basically every day, but you only can
That's awesome.
process so much information.
Of course, yeah, dude. It gets to be too much.
Yeah. It seems at least from Ayn Rand and the Capitalism, the Unknown Ideal book, that I think rules started to come in. Like the first one that maybe was passed was like in 1890. I forget what law it was specifically, but it already began the process of, instead of having a laissez-faire free market one, it was already giving politicians power to dictate laws over the economy, making it harder for anyone else to just get in and start up. And then it started, like, that was the first one, she said, in 1890. And I don't know all the other ones that were after that, but it seems like there hasn't been a country really in history that's had like total free market, laissez-faire capitalism. And she talks about a lot of the misconceptions, people thinking that it would lead to monopolies, but it's only when government interference comes in and then we'll team up different people together, prevent smaller ones from being able to get in because there's greater restrictions, greater requirements. Even the one, what was the one? Antitrust. She talks about antitrust is that
yeah, Teddy breaking up the monopolies, which was a good thing. It was a good thing. I find it ridiculous that she doesn't like that. But go on.
But antitrust, so it's like, because I've heard other people say this. It's like if your price is too low, then they'll say, "Hey, what's going on here? You're cheating the system." if your price is too high, then it's like, what are you doing? You have a monopoly. Or if your price is the same as other people, it'd be saying, hey, you're in cahoots with this other person. And there's no way to really escape this law that has come down on people. I think it's the antitrust law. That might have been the one in the 1890s.
Yeah. The antitrust laws were to prevent, were to break up the monopolies into separate companies.
And it created more as a result.
It created competition, competition, which is a good thing.
No. What the politicians and the law said, it was to create competition, but really it did the complete opposite of it. The surface level, like a lot of socialist policies on the surface, they seem like it's going to be a good thing, but then if you actually see the consequences of it, which a lot of the time you can't see the consequences of it because it gets misplaced during all the other things that you could point to. So that was it.
An important thing that's missing from that statement is that even if the broken up monopolies reformed the monopolies, they were still monopolies in the first place that needed to be broken up. So the monopolies developed, and then Teddy Roosevelt was president, and he broke up the monopolies. And if they did, and they do oftentimes just sort of sink back together, because I mean, if you're a capitalist and you're making a lot of money, buying your competition is the best thing you could do, because then you don't have to compete anymore. So monopolies are basically the goal of capitalism. You want to capture as much of the market and market share as possible. And if you have to, and you can do that through mergers and buying out competition, or if you're like Amazon and somebody tries to make a competitor with Amazon, you lower your prices really far down so that they can't afford to start up, and then when they fall out, then you raise your prices again.
Right. So what happens though if you create a monopoly though, and you're able to have it? Then what happens if your prices become too high?
Starvation, poverty. You still make money because there's still people out there, but a lot of people are shit out of luck.
So wouldn't you think though also another consequence could be that
you're right, eventually
your company could come in and then create a product and sell it much lower than whatever the price is that you're offering?
Not if you have complete market share. Not if you have a monopoly. Now, obviously, it would be tough to have a global monopoly, but let's be honest, Amazon pretty much has a global monopoly on online distribution.
Well, was that the result of free market capitalism, or was that the result of government intervention and lobbyists and laws to prevent other people?
Well, it's actually both, which is why I'm an anarchist. It's a left anarchist, a leftist anarchist, a classical anarchist. It's basically Bezos. Amazon makes a lot of money, starts buying out competition, and then at the same time, while they're capitalizing over things, they invest in lobbyists and laws, and have companies like ALEC, which I forget what they stand for, but there was this huge scandal with this company called ALEC, where basically they were just a lobbying firm, and they would just write laws that would gave companies just basic, like, complete freedom. And thankfully, thanks to journalists like Last Week Tonight's John Oliver, who brought to light the problems of ALEC, they were sued, and they are no longer allowing them to, as you say, use the government to enforce their monopolies as well. So it is a little bit of both. If there was unregulated capitalism, you would still develop monopolies, regulated or unregulated, as long as lobbying is around and money is in politics, or money makes stuff happen. Monopolies will develop. Another example of very close to unregulated capitalism is the Mexican, like Mexico. A lot of it is run by the cartels, and they enforce because there's no government. There is a government, but the government doesn't really do anything and is mostly bribed out. They enforce their markets with guns and gangs, and they literally kill rival cartels if they don't work together. And if you had unregulated libertarian capitalism, there would be paramilitaries that would, like private police would be a very big thing, because the rich would buy them to enforce their market share and make sure people didn't steal from them, make sure people bought their stuff, and make sure competition didn't come in and break up their monopoly.
Okay, so I think what you said there is definitely not what Ayn Rand is for, nor what I am for, but
that is the result of unregulated capitalism.
I disagree. The purpose, she says, of government, and I agree with this, the purpose of government is to do three things. It's to protect people from exactly that, from coercion, from people coming in and threatening you or killing you.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second purpose is to prevent overseas people coming into our country and doing the same thing. And the third one is to have a judiciary system to, arbitrate what happened. This is the result of this. If you break this law, this is what happens, and decide on the punishment. But yeah,
so why would
her
you want to
model
get rid
too-
of that?
I'm sorry,
Why would you want to get rid of that then?
I wouldn't.
Okay, so Ayn Rand does not want is not a total. You don't think that she's a total libertarian, neoliberal, and anarcho-capitalist?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure all the names. She would also be very
Mhm.
upset if someone called her a libertarian because that's not her viewpoint.
Okay, she's an objectivist, which is a kind of that's a kind of silly name for like imagine calling your philosophy, your point of view, objectivism. That's a little bit presumptuous, don't you think?
No, why?
Because it's wrong.
What do you mean?
It's just provably false. Like objectivism is the whole personal responsibility, pull yourself up by your bootstraps thing. When in actuality, the poverty, lack of access to education, like poverty creates crime, and lack of access to education also does that. So if you don't have access, it takes money to make money. So if you don't have money, you can't pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You can't buy bootstraps to pull up.
Okay, I'm not sure. She never says pull yourself up by the bootstraps. Her objectivism philosophy is that there is a reality. There are objectively right things to do and objectively wrong things to do. Like, for example, the purpose of the government to protect you from killing each other. So it's objectively wrong to kill someone no matter what, unless maybe in self-defense. So that would be
an objectively wrong to kill somebody no matter what. There's shades of gray. So there's shades of gray, you admit. It's not objectively, it's not.
No, if someone's coming to kill you, it's okay to kill them, but to just go and kill someone, it's wrong.
Okay, so there are shades of gray, though. Murder is not blanketly wrong. Killing in self-defense.
In self-defense is okay.
So shades.
I don't know what other shade of gray there is. Like someone takes your French fries and you kill them, or you don't like your wife anymore, you kill them. No shade of gray. It's only in self-defense. Is it okay?
Mm-hmm. What about the death penalty? How do you feel about that? Are you for or against?
It's not something I've gotten too deep into it. I think what we have maybe with a lot of these questions that you would have and I would have, the current system that we have is not anything close to what the view I would want of it, and you'd have to take steps to go back to get back to the step or the stage that it should be at. Yeah.
Well, let me go back to what I was saying about the name objectivism. Whether or not you agree with it is immaterial. What if Plato just what if socialism was called objectivism? What if it was just like, what if I was like, I'm objectively correct, whatever I think is true? It is, you're right. It's the belief that there are truths in this universe that are objective, which I do agree with.
Yeah.
But it is a specifically economic policy that is based in neoliberal privatization, free market, laissez-faire capitalism. If that was separated from objectivism, then really objectivism would just be the saying things exist. Could you think of what objectivism would be if you took out free market capitalism besides that?
Okay, so objectivism is a personal philosophy how to live life. It's not a political system. The political system, what is
objectivism then? Perhaps I don't know what it is. Would you explain it to me then? Yes, please read.
Well, yeah, I just wanted to I'll try and do the best I can. I'm not an expert, but also the capitalism is what she says is kind of, that's what I said, is the extrapolated form when it turns into a political system so that you can have the same structures in place that would not impede on the individual. So objectivism is that there's objectively things that are right and there's things that are wrong, like murder. That's not objectively right any way that you want to,
how do you feel about abortion?
Let me just finish what I'm saying.
Because some people argue that abortion is murder, and I would disagree with that. But continue.
Okay, so let me just finish this. And she argues basically is the individual is the sovereign being, autonomous. You can use reason, you can use logic to come to different conclusions. And that is the thing that obviously it's the thing that separated us from other beings and other species. And if you want to, in any kind of system, you still need logic and you still need reason. and that it's never okay really to put the collective goals over the individual goals. Because the individuals, if you talk about caring about minorities, then you don't care about minorities if you don't care about the individual, because the individual is the smallest minority there is. And what is good for you is good for other people. What is good for advancing yourself is good for other people. As long as you're not doing anything that's harming people or putting them in harm's way or hurting them, any of this stuff, it's good. And you should be able to do that no matter what. There shouldn't be someone that comes in and enforces their belief system on you. You have to do this because we said so. It's what we all voted on, so you have to do it. There's none of that. It's just you get to advance yourself in the world doing according to your own philosophy on life, which in that case is just what you want to do and how to like self-enlightened interest. She says selfish virtues. That's it on the objectivism. It's a personal philosophy. It's not a political system.
Okay, so would you agree? So what if you're? I mean, it sounds very libertarian. Would you agree that objectivism is that there are objective truths in the universe, and extrapolated from those objective truths in terms of economics, objectivism states that free market capitalism is objectively the best economic system that could ever be created. Is that correct?
I think up until this point is the best system. Without, but that's what I'm saying with these different things you're talking about. I think there has to be a separation of economics and state, not just church.
I agree. I totally agree with you.
Like economics and state. There's no interest to lobby to the politician. There's no interest to do that. Because
I think there should be no state. I'm sorry.
Right.
Keep going.
Well, I think the state, for the purpose of protecting people, the three things I mentioned, but other than that, they do nothing. They serve no other purpose, and that's it.
So so objectivism states that the government serves the three purposes, and what are the three purposes again?
Protect the individuals from coercion, from outside force, to protect the foreign forces from coming in and doing the same thing to us, and then to have a judiciary system to be the judge of what happened if you hurt someone or this happened, you broke a law.
Okay, so the government should have no say in people's lives and their economics. They shouldn't be taxed except for to do those three things.
Right.
Correct?
Everything else is left up to the private sector.
Okay, so what about the roads then? The roads are something that are not protecting people from coercion. They are not protecting from invaders, and they are not doing judiciary things. Yet the government paving the roads is way better than private companies paving the roads. Because if private companies paid the roads, they would just pave the roads to their businesses. How would you would have to buy a road near your house. You'd have to pay literally to have a road built to your house. Whereas nowadays we have roads and you pay to have your house built on the road unless you're buying a house that's already built. How would you say to that?
I'm not sure, because I was just looking at that for these answers, but I didn't really watch the full video yet to see the answer. But
okay,
do we want
to watch the video together?
Or you buy property. Step 2, you pave it.
Yeah, but right now the government does that, and I don't have to, and you don't have to. I can't afford to buy a road.
Why do we need to pay for a middleman for all these different purposes that you're talking about? Who takes maybe 90% of the money that we give them, and then only 10% actually goes to the actual thing that's supposed to do.
The middleman, there's still a middleman. The road paver. Under objectivism, you would have to pay the road paver.
This is the same thing with this. Is the same thing with other different policies that we think that we need the middleman of the government to do it. When the government's main incentive is to fail. When it fails, it's like, you know what? You know why we failed? We didn't have enough funding. We need to get more funding so we can go out and try it again and do it better. Like, it doesn't have any skin in the game. So there's no incentive for it to even do a good job. It has intellectuals that sit up in their ivory towers and they come up with these planning and these policies, and then it gets implemented. If it doesn't work, you know what? We needed more money. That was why it failed. It's not in the private sector where it did a bad job. It goes out of business, and we don't keep those same people making those same mistakes.
What about 2008, the financial collapse when we had to bail out the banks?
I think I was reading someone else's comments saying that was when we switched from whatever we had to like the state capitalist system, or the other thing that you said, because it's a welfare system for businesses which shouldn't exist. We shouldn't be bailing out.
Right? That's ridiculous. Agreed. Yeah, they should have the right
free
to
market
fail.
Either. It's not free market.
No, it's not. It's socialism for them, but not for us. So it's kind of funny that those people that like to spout low taxes and all that stuff kind of we're totally happy to take the money now, especially the cruise ships. Now they're a big one in the airlines. They wanted bailouts because of the whole COVID thing. Isn't that the market? The coronavirus happened. Planes should go out of
Well,
business.
this is what should happen or should have happened is that government should have no say in what businesses do. If they want to keep their business open during a war, during a pandemic, let them keep it open. Don't interfere with their lives.
So you agree that the airlines should have gone under and the
No, I do
banks
not
back in
agree with
2000.
that.
So
I
you
disagree
agree
that
for
the government should not have the power to tell them that, hey, you can't fly planes now. You can't go to this country. We can't have people from China come in. We can't have people from Europe come in. I don't agree
Okay.
that they should have that power to
But
dictate
bailouts,
what a private company does.
bailouts are not part of those three things, though. I'm
I know,
asking about bailouts. I'm not asking about closing or opening. I'm saying, should the airlines, like, assuming the government does not tell them to stop, but people
Okay.
choose to stay home because
Okay.
of the thing, and then the airlines go out of business.
Then they go out of business. But
So
you leave it up
okay.
to the private sector. You leave it up. If I want to keep running my
Okay.
restaurant, then I can keep running it. We can't have the government come in and force you and arrest people that try and come to the
Okay.
restaurant because you're not allowed to be open. Because that's wrong.
What if you've had this restaurant in your family for 3 generations and then suddenly COVID hit and no one's coming in? You can still be open all you want, but nobody wants to come in because they're all staying home. And then your business goes out of, and then you're out of business.
Yes, at least you have the freedom to choose. You don't have someone coming in with force and preventing you from having the choice.
What choice are you really making if nobody's coming to your business because of COVID anyway? You might as well just close it at that point.
Well, it doesn't change the starting point of my hypothesis. You have the freedom to choose. The government can't come and stop you from doing it. If you go out of business because people don't come in, you go out of business. That's how the free market works.
So you think that the quarantine was unwarranted? We should not have a government enforced quarantine,
Government
even
shouldn't even be allowed to tell the citizens to do that. It shouldn't be
really not even as a suggestion.
I'm sorry.
Not even as a suggestion.
Sure, you can do a suggestion, but when you're coming in and you're arresting a business owner for trying to open a hair salon and make money so she can pay for her food and for her kids, like.
Okay, so what happens when that hair salon owner gets sick because they had to stay open because they had no other source of income and they could only stay open, so they had to get, and one customer came in and they got sick from that one customer, as opposed to having a quarantine, stayed home, have their income continued by the government so they don't go out of business, and then when the quarantine is over, lifted and then back to the market.
That your second scenario should not be a scenario that should happen in the United States of America ever.
Okay, if you say so. Well, fair enough. Then let's go. Let's move on. So are you an anti? So you're a freedom of autonomy. You don't believe people should have to be forced to wear masks, right?